Hi, welcome to the Kids Connection, Chapter 11. I'm Pam.
And I'm Jim.
And we're going to do some review of some of our verses and our clapping games. We're going to review our story from last week, and then we have a pretty interesting news story for this week.
Yes, how about if we start with our verse? One is the sun that shines so bright. One is the moon so high. One is the day. One is the night. One is the sheltering sky. Two are the eyes with which I see. Two are the ears that hear. Joy and sorrow both live in me. So do courage and fear. Very good.
Nice. Join us at home and do it with us, because I think you know these things by now. And we're not going to do everything twice, but when you see us doing something, join in. Next, we're going to do our clapping games. Peas porridge hot, England, Ireland, and then O Mochio. So, you ready?
Ready. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in the pot, 9 days old.
Isn't it funny how in the beginning this stuff was so hard to remember, and now it almost just comes naturally?
Yeah, it's even fun when you mess up.
Here we go.
Okay.
England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, inside, outside, donkeys' tails.
Ah.
And now our tricky one.
Aha.
O Mochio, Suki Masho, O Mochio, Suki Masho, Petanco, Petanco, Petan, Petan, Petanco, He Konote, He Konote, He Kono, He Kono, He Konote, Tan, 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 Ten, Tan, 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 Ten, Tan, Tan, Ten, Tan, Ten, Tan, Ten, Tan. Wow. We've come a long way since chapter 1, haven't we?
Wow.
So now we're going to show to you a new poem, and I think you're going to like it. I love to watch the stars at night. They pierce the sky with icy light. They glint and glimmer all night long and sing to me a soundless song. Through all the midnight dark and deep, they watch my rest and guard my sleep. Like angels' eyes, their timeless beams enlighten all my happy dreams. When morning spreads across the sky, their candles seem to fade and die. But when the evening comes once more, again they shine through heaven's door. So let's do our verse about doing our best.
There lives in me an image of all that I can be. Until I have become it, my heart is never free.
Do you remember last chapter we learned a lot about the alphabet? And Jim reminded us about lines and curves, and we looked at all the letters we had made, A, B, C, D, and then we learned that there's capital or large A's and small or lowercase a's, and that with all these different letters, they have different shapes made of lines and curves. And we did a couple of things. We read a book that had a really snappy poem that went with it. A told B and B told C, I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. And then it went on with all the letters, and at the end of each verse it said, chicka chicka boom boom. And then all those small letters fell out of the tree, and the capital letters came running, which were the parents. It was sort of funny. And then they had like a funny little poem that went with that. And then at the very end, after they had all gone home, it was nighttime, and the moon came out, and then A woke up and he couldn't sleep, and so he went out. A was out of bed, and this is what he said. Dare, double dare, you can't catch me. I'll meet you at the top of the coconut tree. And that was a lot of fun, and we acted it out with our letters on the board, and Jim drew a really great coconut tree. And then we also had all the letters that we showed you in the alphabet, and each one was a small letter, a large letter, a capital letter, and a lowercase letter, and then a picture that went with it. And we asked you to guess what all those pictures were that started with that letter. So it was like A was for apple, B was for baby, C was for cat, and we just looked at the entire alphabet and had a whole lot of fun with that. And then I think some of you got paper to practice on making letters. Today, we have something new planned for you, and I can't wait for you to see.
So we've made a lot of letters together. And if you remember, we did them all by using straight lines and curved lines, like this. That's A, straight line, curved line B, just a curve there, C, curved line, straight line D. All right, and we could go on with the rest of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So it helps to sing that too as you make your alphabet. So there's more we can do with straight lines and curved lines. Let's take a look at what else you can do. And if you want to take a moment to grab a piece of paper and a pencil at home, you can try this with me. So, if I'm using just straight lines, watch what we can do. These are all straight lines, do you agree? And I think we talked about this. These are diagonal lines. They're kind of on a slant. Do you see how it does that? And we just kept doing that back and forth. So there's other kinds of lines we can make too. What about this? Yeah, these are all curved lines, right? They're kind of similar, but they're all curves. And that's fun to do. Just keep making that same design. So, if you have line paper at home, that's great. Use that. If not, it's fun to see how straight you can keep it if it's just a blank piece of paper. Wow, there's so many things we can do. What if we try a design like this? Now these are getting a little bit more advanced. Okay, does that look like a waveform? Or what if we try something like this? These take a little practice, but once you get the hang of it, they're kind of fun to keep repeating. And maybe they'll get better as you go. The first couple might be a little squiggly, a little crooked, but you'll get straighter as you go. And wow, yeah, we can keep going with these kinds of forms. They can get really interesting. We can do something like this. Do you see how some of them are above the midline and some are below? Right, we can do that. Or we could do something like this. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I make a shape like that, it just feels so good to just keep doing it. Even when you stop, you almost feel like it's still going. Yeah, and gosh, look at all these shapes. Straight lines, curved lines. This is a combination of straight and curved, right? So all of these things that we're making, in a way, you could say they're combinations of these basic shapes. There's our friend the circle. Do you know what that is? Do you recognize the triangle? And more straight lines. A square. right? 3 basic shapes: circle, triangle, square. And gosh, there's even more that we can do with these kinds of lines and shapes. For instance, we can make, to get a little lower here, what about this? A spiral. We can do that. We can do, what about this? This is a little harder. This takes a little concentration. You might have to play around with this form. Okay, it almost looks like it's moving or walking, right? Wow, what else can we do? What if we do something like this? We'll make 2 straight lines like a big plus sign, and then what if we start to fill in like that? And just keep making that same shape. And then what if we do it over here? Okay, wow, something's happening there. We'll do it down here. Right? And these things, this is a very fancy term. These are different quadrants. There's one, there's one, there's one, and here's the 4th one. And once you do a bunch of them and you step back, you think, wow, that's kind of cool. Those are some of the kinds of designs you can make when you're, when you start this. And I think I want to do one more. So we'll make another cross or T or plus sign. And maybe this time I will start up here. I'm going to move out this way. Go through the middle. Oh, I've crossed over. Looping back, cross over again. Come through the middle. And up like a figure 8. And it's fun sometimes too, just to keep going with that. And sometimes too, you can see how to make it a little more even or symmetrical in the design that you're trying to make. And then as you keep doing it, it gets a little easier. You're like, oh, I know how this goes. And you can go a little faster maybe, making the same shape. And you can play with these kinds of straight lines and curved lines endlessly, making different kinds of designs and combinations. All right, so now we're going to hear a story, and I'm going to illustrate the story as we go. And if you look closely, I think you'll agree, everything will be some combination of a straight line or a curved line.
The name of our story is Josie and the Argonauts. A long, long time ago, in a time before cell phones and before cars and before schools, there lived a young girl whose name was Josie. Now Josie's father, Amani, was a king. The family lived in a land far, far from here. The king had a brother, Parvez. He was a greedy man, and he managed to push Josie's father, Amani, off the king's throne. Sensing the danger, Amani had no choice but to take his family far away so they could live safely. They traveled a long time on foot and on horseback. And one day, Josie's parents fell asleep. They fell asleep on the horses they were riding. They didn't notice that Josie stopped to look at something and had fallen behind while the horse they were riding on kept galloping. So Josie was left all alone. Night came. She was hungry. and thirsty, and she grew very afraid. She didn't know what kind of wild animals lived nearby. Every noise sounded strange and threatening that night, and she sat and shivered and cried herself to sleep. When she woke up the next day, she was still curled in a ball. She looked up, and the sun was shining, and standing over her was a very strange man. No. Animal. No. What the heck was he? His upper half was a man, and his lower half was a horse. He was what you would call a centaur, and his name was Kwame. "Good morning," he said in a friendly manner. Or, what are you? There's plenty of time to discuss that. I bet you're hungry. He smiled. Hesitantly, Josie admitted, "Yes, I am. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning." Kwame, the centaur, let Josie ride on his back, and he took her to find some juicy berries in the field and roots that were good to eat, like carrots and potatoes. She was so hungry that they seemed to taste better than any other fruits or vegetables she had ever eaten. He also showed Josie how to hunt, because Kwame was an expert in archery. Archers are people who shoot arrows with bows. He carried a beautiful bow and stout arrows. Josie learned to pass the arrows to him when they looked for food, and when she got older, he showed her how to aim straight and hit her target. So you can see that Kwame took care of Josie, and she grew to be straight and strong and smart, with a knowledge of all things nature. When Josie grew old enough, she decided she wanted to find her real parents, so she kissed Kwame goodbye and thanked him for everything he had done for her. She left the safety and security of Kwame's cave and did her best to remember where she had come from. Before she departed, he handed her an amulet, which is like a piece of jewelry with some special power. Whenever you get in trouble, grab your amulet and think of this place, and that can help you feel safe, he assured her. So with her amulet around her neck, she retraced her steps back to her original home, a long way away. She got lost a few times and even lost one of her sandals. She didn't give up, though, and one day she found herself setting foot on her old homeland. What she found was somewhat familiar and somewhat new. Her uncle, Parvis, was still king. That was the same. However, she met many new people, and some of the homes and other dwellings looked different. Most of all, Josie was older now, and she was different. She was strong of limb and smart in many ways. Her shiny golden hair peeked from under her cap. Many of the townspeople remembered her and cheered her, and this made Parvis nervous because he had heard from the local oracle, the word oracle means a person with great wisdom, that he would be overthrown by a young person wearing only one shoe. So when he saw Josie wearing one sandal, in his heart, Parvis began plotting how to get rid of Josie. The first thing Parvis did was to decide to hold a grand feast to celebrate the return of his brother's daughter, his niece. At least, that's why he said he was holding the celebration. And during the meal, he revealed his true intention in the form of an impossible request that he thought would surely get rid of Josie for good. And he declared out loud to everyone present, "Josie, it is a high honor to have you visit me and the people of my kingdom. By Jove, if you would be so good as to fetch the golden fleece for us, we would be eternally grateful. And I will step aside so you can be king. We have had the golden fleece stolen from us, and we have never been the same here. We miss it every day. Honestly, I don't know how much longer we can live without it. Then, Josie stood up from her seat and proclaimed, I accept the challenge of the golden fleece. The crowd cheered. Many patted Josie on the back and encouraged her. Other heroes standing nearby approached her and offered enthusiastically to join her voyage. And soon, a team was assembled. The skilled shipbuilder Argus crafted them a worthy ship they appropriately named Argo. Therefore, the heroes who sailed on it are known as Argonauts. Argos, sailors, are just like people who go to the moon are known as astronauts, star sailors. Actually, to get back to the king for a minute, what he said was partly true. The king and his people did sorely miss the golden fleece. But before we go any further, what, you ask, is a golden fleece? That, my friends, is a good question. Tune in to chapter 12 of the Kids Connection to find out the answer and to hear about the adventures Josie has with her fellow heroes as they confront one-eyed giants, foul-smelling birdmen, and the dragon who guards the golden fleece. We'll find all out about all of that and more next time. Hey Jim, we got another package.
Oh, another package.
This looks interesting. In it we have some yarn.
Yarn. Colorful yarn.
And some popsicle sticks.
Oh, popsicle sticks. So many things you can do with popsicle sticks.
Yeah, cool.
Great. How about if we try to make the amulet from the story? Some people, when they make these, they call it a god's eye. You know, you can call it whatever you'd like, but it's basically a design with straight lines. And speaking of which, here we have more straight lines, right? These are popsicle sticks or craft sticks. They're easy to find in a craft store or just about any place. Here's our yarn, which, again, another line, right? Great, straight. We could make it curved, all kinds of things, okay? So, to get started, we will make like a cross or a T or a plus sign. And, you know, to start, you could glue the yarn to the middle, but really you don't have to, because if you just overlap it a few times, it'll stay. So it doesn't really matter how we start as long as we secure the end of the yarn here by overlapping. So just once or twice or 3 times around will do it. And you may need to slide your popsicle stick either way if it starts to move around on you. But okay, so already I can see it's secure, it's not going anywhere. We're in good shape. I think I will slide it a little bit there to make it even. And sometimes too it wants to do this or do that. So just do your best to keep it straight. Okay, so once you get to this point and you're ready to start, we need to start thinking about what's the pattern we need to make for our amulet. And it goes like this. We're going to decide where to start. I think I'll just start here and I'll go over the top of this stick. We're going to go on a diagonal, come back around, go on another diagonal, go behind it, come around, another diagonal, loop behind it. And these are all diagonals. Go behind it, loop around. Now you see the different colors starting to come in, which is kind of fun. Your yarn might be a little different, but no matter what, it's going to look good as long as you have different colors in your yarn. If you have all one color, it'll still work, but it won't show up quite as well. So I think you can see already there's some kind of design starting to happen. And if the yarn starts to overlap, it'll still work, but I'm trying to be as careful as I can to make sure the yarn just kind of fits neatly against the last row. If it overlaps, that's okay, it'll still work, but see if you can just get each row to sort of follow on the last one. Believe me, getting started is the hardest part here. Once you're in a rhythm, there'll be no stopping you. It's like that with a lot of things in life. Getting started is often the hardest part. Oh, this is great. Now I see another color coming in. That's kind of fun. Makes it more interesting. Oh, I'm feeling this is getting kind of magical. Like this might offer me some protection. Just like in the story. This is kind of cool. Oh, and I really see the design starting to happen now too. These kinds of things that you can do with your hands, wow, they're a great way to spend time. You can kind of lose yourself doing something like this. People who are into knitting and weaving can spend hours doing this. It's really great to help you relax, relieve stress, and it's fun. And if you enjoy it, you could get something, kind of cool at the end too, like a project. Like, hey, look, I made that. Wood carving is like that, or drawing, building with blocks, anything like that that you can do with your hands. Doing hair, braiding hair could be like that too. So there's many ways, to use your hands. Wow, that's really starting to show up. Do you see that? How cool. Wow, I really see that. And then I suppose at the end, well, we've got a little more to go here. Let's keep going. At some point we'll have to tie it off and finish it here. Okay, we're getting near the end here, and the only thing we'll have to worry about is how to finish it, how to tie it off. So, yeah, when you see that you're very near the end, I think we'll come down to one of the sticks. For me, it's this one. And I will leave a little extra gap, loop this around, and just bring it through the loop. Kind of like I'm tying my shoes, like that. And see if you can pull it tight. Okay, doesn't need to be super tight, but it's tight enough to make a catch. And take your scissors, cut off the excess. And there's your amulet, God's eye, whatever you want to call it, right?
Wow, I love this. This is so cool. And all it took was 2 popsicle sticks and a piece of yarn. Wow.
And about 4 tries.
Well, and these kinds of things are never easy to get started, especially when you're doing something with your hands. And sometimes you have to try this and try that until you sort of make it work your way. If you get stuck, you can always go and re-look at Jim doing it, or you could go on YouTube and look it up and find someone else trying it. But the point is that anything that you want to try and get good at takes practice. So you have to keep trying and not get too frustrated because, when you're learning something, it's never easy. But look what you can come up with, something really cool. And then you could tie a piece of string on this and you could wear it as a necklace. So today we reviewed our verse, What is the Sun? We did our clapping games, Peas Porridge Hot, England, Ireland, Omochio, and then we learned a new poem that had to do with nighttime, stars, and sleeping. It was a really lovely poem. We reviewed our story about Chicka Chicka Boom Boom and talked about the letters of the alphabet, and then we started our new story about Josie and the Argonauts. and we looked at the letters again, and the straight and the curve, and we looked at the different little forms that you can draw. Some people call them doodles, some people call them designs. There's a lot of ways to think about it, but it's really using lines and curves in different combinations to make all sorts of endless, interesting pictures. And not only are they fun to look at, they're fun to do, and they can be very relaxing, much as like making a God's eye. And like Jim said, once you learn how to knit or crochet, those two can become very relaxing ways to calm down and to feel relaxed.
It passes the time, too. Sometimes you think, I don't know what to do with myself. It's something to do with your hands.
Right. Some people like to do things while they're doing something else. So you might be watching TV while you're knitting. So we also learned about some of the very basic shapes: circles, triangles, squares. And it turns out, if you love to draw, you can start building almost anything out of these different shapes. And we introduced the story of Josie and how she, got left behind by her parents when they were fleeing her uncle, who was the new king, and he wasn't very friendly, how she made her way back there. And next time we're going to find out more about that story. And then we made our amulet, which Kwame, the centaur, gave her so that she could feel safe when she remembered staying with him. So we have a whole nother exciting part to our story next time for chapter 12.
I wonder what's going to happen.
I wonder. We'll see you then.